Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Your Overwatch. I'm Eddie the Chump and today we're going to be talking about some possible hints for content we could be getting at Blizzcon and beyond. There's two main stories today. The first is that some changes to the payload on Route 66 have happened on the PTR. We were linked to video by Master Ian Gamer which showed the changes off. This has got a lot of people speculating about Hero 29, the possible McCree cinematic and the Deadlock Gang, with some people bringing up comparisons to the map changes that preceded Doomfist and Arisa's arrival in the game. Secondly, we've got some new datamined voice lines found by a YouTube channel called Overfire, which made their way to Reddit via a user called Dixon Salem. Links to both the Reddit post and the original video will be in the description, so be sure to check them out. So with that intro out of the way, let's explore these two subjects in greater detail and have some fun speculating wildly about what they could mean. Hero 29 and the McCree cinematic. First things first, the payload on Route 66 has changed on the PTR. The bomb that the Deadlock Gang retrieved from the US military train has had its nose cone removed and whatever was inside, presumably a warhead, has been taken. Now some have noted that the design on the bomb looks similar to the one on the top of Diva's mech, which might indicate a similar reactor type item inside, seeing as she detonated hers in her recent cinematic. Now to me, this all screams Talon involvement, at least indirectly, maybe getting McCree's old gang to do the dirty work for them. In the McCree comic, which was very early in the game's life cycle, he helped foil a Talon raid for an unknown item in the cargo hold of a hyper train. I don't think this is the same item, I think this heist is new. If I had to guess, Talon want a warhead to spark a new omnic-human conflict. That's in line with Doomfist's survival of the fittest mentality, and McCree's ex-pals the Deadlock Gang might have been recruited by Reaper or Talon in general to get a hold of this potential spark point item. What's also interesting when you think about it is that map changes like this have traditionally preceded new heroes. Doom's Gauntlet was removed from the payload on Umbani, the destroyed bots in the attacker spawn that Arisa was constructed from were also added, and we're almost 100% certain that a new hero is coming to BlizzCon. Blizzard doesn't make changes like this to a map unless it means something. Does it follow that the new hero has something to do with Route 66 and the Deadlock Gang then? Well, it's possible, but as we are currently guessing what was in the casing from the payload, it's harder to draw a firm link. Doom's Gauntlet was a long-storied item in the game, having been the subject of an attempted raid by Reaper and Widow in an early cinematic. Everyone knew what it meant, and its removal from Numbani signaled significant change. This is different. It doesn't mean that Hero 29 isn't from Route 66, but as for who they are and what their kit could be, your guess is as good as mine. One direction that could make sense is some kind of demolition expert. Presumably, a member of the Deadlock Gang was responsible for planting the charges needed to take down the military train. If you look in the cafe spawn, there are blueprints for how they plan to take out the bridge by placing explosives at key positions. In fact, the whole Deadlock Gang are known for their fondness and trafficking in illicit black market weapons. Point 3 of Route 66 is actually their main base, and you can see weapons of all types stored there. It's reasonable to suggest then that they have within their ranks specialists of different weapon types. Now perhaps a demolition expert might be a bit too close to Junkrat, as the visual evidence we see suggests mines and Junk already has those, but perhaps they're a different kind of mine. But as for timed or proximity mines, those could work in Overwatch. The idea of a hero that sets traps like Junkrat does, but in a much more pronounced way, like say a proximity triggered minefield, maybe as a space denial tool, could really make sense. Perhaps their ultimate could be a rocket, like a Predator missile from Call of Duty. There's rockets all over the Deadlock base. Maybe, however, that might be a bit too on the nose though. If Hero 29 were another Deadlock Gang member, thematically it would make sense for them to also be a Western movie archetype. We have the gunslinger duelist in McCree, but what about someone who uses a long rifle? Semi-auto hitscan is one of the only versions of that damage type that we don't currently have. Perhaps Hero 29 uses a lever action repeater rifle like some old school cowboys. I always think of Fallout New Vegas when I imagine that kind of gun. 4 shots fired in order with a lever pump in between and a reload at the end. I know what you're all thinking, if it is another Western type hero, surely a lasso must be involved at some point. I mean, it makes sense for sure, but does the game really need another form of stun? Because that's what a lasso would essentially be. Maybe it just corrals enemies together without stunning them like they're cattle. If more CC got added to the game, then I think Ryan Maines might actually just quit, so perhaps not. More interesting interestingly, if they were a gang member, what would their in-game relationship be like with McCree? He basically betrayed them, so I'm guessing it might not be that pleasant. We've had dark and light reflections of heroes before. Moira and Mercy, I think, provide the best example of evil and good interpretations of the same role. This could work the same for McCree and Hero 29. What do you guys think? Let us know your best Hero 29 theories down below. Now, the other option is that this hint isn't to do with the new hero, but rather a possible McCree cinematic. We already believe on this channel that McCree will likely figure quite heavily this year at BlizzCon. He's on the official artwork, etc. I've gone at great length to talk up a McCree cinematic. I do still think that's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if the cinematic is centered around McCree facing off against Reyes in the present day over this new payload weapon Danger, while having flashbacks to when they first met and McCree got recruited to Blackwatch. History repeats itself, life is a flat circle. The juxtaposition of their two fates could make compelling viewing. McCree started out a villain of sorts, then through Reyes became somewhat redeemed. Reyes, however, started out heroic and then descended into darkness, quite literally. That's what's called thematic contrast, and I'd love it if this was the case. It makes a lot of sense to me, going back to where it all began for these two people, so to speak. Maybe, just maybe, this PTR change has ties to both the new cinematic and the new hero. That would be great. I have to remind myself we don't have that long to wait. BlizzCon is not that far away. Whatever the truth is, we'll have our answers soon. Datamined voice lines. Moving on, we're going to talk about the recent discovery of some new voice lines for Brigitta and Hammond. These are essentially very similar to ones for other characters discovered in May last year. All the lines make reference to the destruction of an objective. So what could this mean? Well, this is the fun bit because we know from Jeff's dev update about BlizzCon content that we're not going to be getting a new map this year. But what about a new game mode? Papa Jeff could be very sly in what he lets us assume. There is a practical reality to a new game mode that the speculation we're about to indulge in needs to be grounded by. Any new game mode, any serious one that is, like one that would actually make its way into competitive rotation, would have historically needed specialized maps. All the other modes do. No map is repurposed aside from a few brawl examples like 3v3 deathmatch, even though that did eventually get its own original maps, and CTF also reused parts of control maps if you remember. A new game mode for competitive would be a huge change for Overwatch, likely having to be tested in quick play or even entirely separately before making the jump. There is perhaps one exception though that I could see as a possibility. Payload maps are very large and there's no reason necessarily why they have to be played in the order they currently are. Depending on how the new mode worked, playing them in reverse or all points simultaneously could be an option. So with all that said, let's have some fun imagining what a destruction game mode could be. The Rush scenario from Battlefield and say Summoner's Rift from League of Legends immediately spring to mind. Why? Because they're both centered around the destruction of objectives, progressive bomb sites and towers respectively. Most of you will know how they work, so I won't go that far into them. Suffice to say, they would bring with them opportunities for different kinds of heroes to shine, and they both focus on taking down objectives through smashing them to bits with righteous damage. Rush has limited respawns for the attacking team to destroy what they need to. Mercy then would surely become invaluable, not only for her res, but any form of damage amp on a hero that's taking out an objective would be very powerful. Zen's Discord on a Nexus-like tower could be key to taking it out quickly. Symmetra's ultimate and turrets would be amazing for defending your own tower, for example. And Torb might be especially good at objective destruction with his new Molten Core ultimate. The nicheness of certain heroes' kits would be a distinct positive and give them real meaning, not something of a hindrance, allowing for a much wider and more diverse hero meta. The meta is the way it is because despite what mode you're playing, Overwatch is still currently all about winning team fights. That'd still be true in these new modes, but destroying something very specific would mean heroes good at one thing, like high volumes of damage, might be absolutely top tier and required. Bastion would probably be very strong in these scenarios. When was the last time you could say that? Perhaps it's not even PvP. Perhaps it's like Destiny 2's Gambit. It's a race between two teams to see who can take out a series of things with minor team versus team interactions at certain points. A new competitive mode like this, whether it eventually worked its way into regular rotation or was a completely separate playlist of its own, would add freshness to Overwatch in a way not really seen before. However, we do have to temper our expectations a little bit. These are just data-mined voice lines and previously they've never gone anywhere. But a man can dream, Jeff. Get up on stage at BlizzCon and show us something we've never seen before in Overwatch. Something that makes us go, wow, that's amazing. What do you guys think? What objective destruction game modes do you think would be a good fit for the game? As always, let us know down below. And that's about it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a rating. If you never want to miss another video of ours again, please click the bell icon next to the subscribe button on our channel to join the notification squad. You'll be in great company. And finally, please follow the Your Overwatch Twitter, where you can find updates about new videos and other cool stuff. I've been Eddie the Chump, and until next time.